Now the latest ITV News in London with Duncan Golestani.
Tonight, let out and left to kill. Jordan McSweeney was released from prison just weeks before he beat Zara Aleena to death as she walked home from a night out in Ilford.
She had every right to feel safe, but instead she was the victim of shocking violence.
Also on the programme, bird flu arrives in the capital. Dozens of swans and geese have already died.
This is the first time, to my knowledge, that it's come inside the M25. I've never seen anything like it at all.
Guess who's in hot water? The row brewing between the High Street brand and Banksy. Plus, pitch power, we meet the footballer who's now making it big in the world of music. Good evening. Zara Aleena had been on a night out in Ilford when she was attacked while making her way home. She endured a brutal beating that would kill her and a sexual assault. Jordan McSweeney then made off with her phone, handbag and keys. Today, McSweeney pleaded guilty to murder as it was revealed he had only been let out of prison for a matter of weeks. This report from our senior correspondent Ronke Phillips contains details of the attack.
Her name was Zara Aleena. This is her happy, enjoying life with friends. In the early hours of Sunday, June the 26th this year, Zara was targeted and murdered by a sexual predator who for the first time today admitted what he'd done. Detectives say Zara, who was short and slight of frame, did not stand a chance against the well-built stranger who attacked her.
Jordan McSweeney has pleaded guilty today to the most serious offences. He is clearly a very dangerous individual, and his guilty plea today means that he is certain to serve a considerable period of time behind bars.
Seen here with a sleeveless top shortly before the attack, Jordan McSweeney had only recently been released from prison. During today's hearing, he stared at the floor as he entered his guilty pleas. Zara's family, who were also in court, looked on. It was just after 2:30 in the morning when emergency services were called to Ilford following reports that a woman had been found badly injured in the street. Zara was returning home after a night out and was walking along this main road when McSweeney grabbed her and dragged her into the driveways of one of these houses. He then proceeded to strip her partially naked. He stamped on her and kicked her. When she was found, she was semi-conscious and struggling to breathe. The law graduate was taken to hospital where she died later the same morning. She'd suffered a ferocious attack and had also been sexually assaulted. McSweeney had stolen her mobile phone, keys and handbag. Shortly after the murder, hundreds of people dressed in white gathered for a silent vigil to remember the 35-year-old and demand issues around women's safety are taken more seriously. Zara's loved ones didn't speak today, but at the time they also talked about violence against women when they said in a statement that her dreams of a family are shattered, her future brutally taken. We must prevent and stop violence against women and girls, they said. The same sentiment was repeated by campaigners after today's hearing.
We as women, we should be able to walk anywhere at any time. We should be able to walk without the fear of feeling that we're
Zara felt safe and was well known. She took all the right precautions, but it wasn't enough to protect her from a predator like McSweeney. Ronke Phillips, ITV News.
It appears that bird flu has arrived in the capital after confirmation that more than 30 geese and swans have died at two of the city's parks. The royal parks say they are very concerned about the suspected outbreaks at Hyde Park and Kensington Palace over the last 2 weeks. And the illness is affecting food supplies in the run-up to Christmas too. A warning, you may find some of the images in Helen Keenan's report distressing.
A protected species, but not safe from the effects of avian flu. The suspected reason behind the deaths of more than 30 birds at two London parks.
This is one of our many rescue vehicles.
Steve runs this swan sanctuary in Shepperton. He says in all of his years here, this is the worst crisis he has encountered.
It's the first time, to my knowledge, that it's come inside the M25. Like it has with a vengeance. I've never seen anything like it at all. Just literally up the road here, we've got birds at this very moment dying at Staines.
The Royal Parks charity said it's very concerned about the bird flu outbreak and said it's closely monitoring its waterfowl and has preemptively moved a colony of pelicans in St James's Park to their enclosure on Duck Island.
The birds were found over the last 2 weeks in Kensington Palace and here at Hyde Park, where most of the swans have now been moved out to be tested for avian flu after several suspected cases were reported across the capital in recent weeks.
Supermarkets are also feeling the effects of the crisis. Empty shelves in London as some supermarkets limit the number of boxes of eggs customers can buy amid supply disruptions caused by rising costs and bird flu. And now the concern is it could also impact on how many turkeys will be available at Christmas. This butcher's in Holland Park says they're engaged in Russian roulette as they wait to see how many flocks will be left.
No one knows who's going to have turkeys and who won't have turkeys. Some of the best farmers available have been hit with bird flu, which is absolutely really heartbreaking for them, and there's not much they can do now. So this year there'll definitely be a shortage of turkeys. It may mean more people have to eat different sorts of meats such as beef or lamb, but there'll definitely be a shortage of turkeys across the whole country.
The UK is facing its largest ever bouts of bird flu, and it appears the outbreak may have now spread to the capital. Helen Keenan, ITV News.
A 25-year-old man accused of murdering a Metropolitan Police officer inside Croydon Custody Centre will face trial next year. Prosecutors allege Louis de Souza shot PC Matt Ratner in the chest while handcuffed in September 2020. The trial will begin at Northampton Crown Court on the 6th of June 2023. Plans for London's historic meat and fish markets to move to Dagenham Dock have been approved by the City of London Corporation. The project will see the authorities spend nearly £1 billion on the move, which will create thousands of jobs. And Heathrow Airport is braced for major disruption across the weekend as ground handlers who work for the company Menzies walk out in a strike over pay. 350 workers from the Unite Union are staging a 3-day strike, which is due to cause delays, disruption and cancellations on flights leaving terminals 2, 3 and 4. Political leaders in the capital are pushing back against the Chancellor's decision to allow local authorities to increase the council tax threshold, how much we all pay. For local services, At the moment, they can't increase council tax by more than 3%, but Jeremy Hunt has said authorities will be able to raise the rate by as much as 5% next year. That could tip bills in some places over £2,000 for the first time. Well, joining me now is Councillor Rowan Ree from Hammersmith and Fulham Council. Councillor, first of all, what would that 5% do to bills in your area if you went that high?
Well, obviously, we haven't made a decision about how high council tax will be next year. But we've historically been able to keep council tax pretty low in Hammersmith and Fulham. In 5 out of the last 8 years, we've either cut or frozen council tax. But obviously, with the renewed pressures that we're facing, it means that we're going to have to look again at this. Ideally, we don't want to put taxes up by that much during the cost of living crisis, but there is a real squeeze on local services and local budgets at the moment.
So now the government is giving you flexibility to choose whether to raise those rates or not. What's wrong with that? What do you object to?
Well, look, let's be clear about this. Council tax is a regressive tax. It's a tax that hits the poorest people hardest. And the government are really pushing this responsibility down onto local authorities by not increasing our funding in line with inflation. We've seen inflation rates of 11% at the moment, and council services just can't keep up with that. We're going to have to face a choice between either affecting the services that we provide or putting up tax to pay for it.
I mean, the government is obviously increasing income taxes for high earners, as we saw yesterday. But I don't understand, why do you object to having this flexibility, this choice? You can decide whether you want to raise it or not, what services can be prioritised, and you're accountable to electors in your area, aren't you?
We are indeed, but as I say, council tax is a regressive tax. It's one of the only tools that we have for raising money. The others, of course, being charging for council services, which again is even more regressive because that affects the most vulnerable people who are reliant on council services. Income tax is a progressive tax. People on higher wages pay a higher rate, whereas we all know people living in larger houses who are on low incomes and would struggle to pay higher council tax.
I mean, the government calls it a perfect economic storm, doesn't it, given the shortfall in public finances? What would your solution be then?
Well, look, our grant from government has been cut significantly in recent years. Back in 2010, we had a budget of £180 million. Today, it's just over 120. Now, in real terms, that's a cut of 55p in the pound. There aren't many organisations that can deliver the same quality of service that they were doing a decade ago with less than half of the resources. I think we need to see councils properly funded by government if they want councils to be able to deliver quality services.
OK, Councillor Ree, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Now, the fallout from the budget continues on the ITV News at 6:30. Here's Lucrezia with the details.
A woman who stood no chance. A man admits to murdering Zara Aleena just days after he was released from prison. The law graduate was kicked, stamped on and left for dead after she was attacked on her way home from a night out in East London last summer. Also, the row over alcohol at the Qatar World Cup. Beer is now banned from stadiums just 2 days before the tournament kicks off. And Manchester United say they're taking appropriate steps against Cristiano Ronaldo following his explosive interview. Join me for those stories and more at 6:30.
Next tonight, he became known as one of the youngest stabbing victims in London last year. But a year since Jermaine Cools lost his life at just 14 in Croydon, there has been a glimmer of hope after the darkness of so many young killings. This year, the area has not recorded any teenage murders. And after the heartache of the last 12 months for Jermaine's family, it is a marked improvement on the anniversary of his death. Antoine Allen reports.
We thought of you today. But that's nothing new. We thought of you yesterday, and before that too. We think of your silence. We often speak your name.
Jermaine Cools was just 14 years old when he was stabbed to death a year ago on the streets in Croydon. Today, a plaque was unveiled in his memory. Jermaine's father was grateful, but still devastated his son will never return home.
It's nothing different today and yesterday and the day before. For the time we lost Jermaine, we've just been going through a lot of pain. Can't sleep in the night and just reach like the parents have to face what we're facing,
Just weeks ago, Julius saved the life of a young girl. This CCTV footage shows the moment he tackled a man who was carrying a large knife. Julius's heroic actions ensure that this year Croydon still has not seen a teenager die from youth violence.
Imagine your kids go to school or whatever and come back with a stabbing home. How do you? It's the same pain I'm feeling. They're feeling the same pain, even though the kids didn't die, but it's still pain, By the same group of people, that going around and stabbing people and killing people for no reason.
Missed but never forgotten. Jermaine Calls was one of 5 young people that lost their life in Croydon last year, but this year no young person has lost their life on these streets. But if that's to continue into 2023, the collective effort between the police and the community would have to keep going. Each week, the police, youth workers, mentors and leaders meet here to discuss solutions and raise problems. Anthony King says any reduction to charity funding could have deadly consequences. There's forecasts of a coming recession. If the government is to make cuts to youth services, just how devastating could that be?
Absolutely devastating. Cuts to their roles, reduction in their hours and the work that they're doing in terms of outreach and engagement would not only leave children vulnerable, it will leave children lonely, short of activities, which could evidently and definitely lead to serious youth violence.
At the end of 2021, 15-year-old Zayn Aleena became the last teenager to be stabbed to death in Croydon. His parents' continued suffering is a reminder that the police and community leaders cannot be complacent as they tackle serious youth violence. Antoine Allen, ITV News.
Still to come on the programme, we'll have the weekend weather, plus Paddington at the Palace, what happened to the thousands of bears left for the Queen, and the London teenager who's celebrating a Mobo nomination. But first, a row is brewing between the street artist, graffiti artist Banksy and a famous fashion brand with a store in central London. Willem Marks is on Regent Street for us this evening. Willem, what's this all about?
Duncan, this is the giant American fashion brand Guess at one of the flagship locations on one of London's busiest shopping streets, where they have had to take down this display just over the last couple of hours. Quite interestingly, the artist Banksy has posted on his Instagram feed about this, saying that he's encouraging essentially shoplifters at this location, something that's illegal, because in his words, the company has helped themselves to his artwork without asking. He's just recently won a ruling in his favour that he allows him to trademark images while maintaining his anonymity. He's not clarified exactly what he meant by that. We've reached out to both Guess as well as Brandalize, the creative agency that owns the license for products involving Banksy's images. Neither of them responded so far. Just a couple of hours ago, though, workers were taking down the display that you can see behind me, and really significantly, they now seem to have just covered it up with this white shading.
Willem on Regent Street, thank you very much. Scientists at King's College Hospital have found that a revolutionary vaccine can double the survival rate of patients with one of the most aggressive forms of brain tumours. The study could provide extra years of life for people who have been diagnosed with glioblastoma, a type of cancer which can occur at any age.
So the way we make the DC this vaccine is to combine patients' own tumour that we obtain at surgery, to combine that with patients' own white cells, their own immune cells, and then inject that back into the patient. It is a bit like having a little dog and give them something and say, sniff this and now go and hunt. It's exactly the same thing. You educate the immune system with the patient's own tumor, so the immune system can recognize that tumor.
Now, it is the biggest football tournament in the world, but this time it doesn't come without controversies. England kick off their World Cup campaign in Qatar against Iran on Monday, but after suggestions of a boycott over human rights issues, is World Cup fever failing to grip the capital? Daniel Henry has been finding out.
Where will you be watching the World Cup? It's moments like this that keep places like this packed. It's quiet today, but preparations are underway, and bosses here are expecting a very, very busy Monday.
The bookings have been phenomenal. The interest has been phenomenal. We're more or less sold out across all 3 sites. Literally can't wait to start on Monday. It's going to be a phenomenal World Cup campaign. Can't wait, can't wait.
Down the road in Acton,
the politics, part of sport, part of football, especially at the moment in the World Cup.
This barbershop has a different feeling about the football. When England play Iran, there'll be much more than the match on the line.
I'm angry for football, my player in Iran. My feeling is not good. I like football because now this football team is not behind the people.
As the Iranian protests for women's rights continue, Farshid has a message for the England team.
Last season, the football not very important for Iranian.
Of course.
Because the government, they kill young people, old people, children in the street. Honest with you, I want to English football team to support Iranian people. Please. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
We don't have long to wait. England play Iran on Monday. Daniel Henry, ITV News.
Now, when it comes to computer games, the enemy is normally a monster, a crime boss or an army, but a new game has an adversary we're all more likely to encounter: climate change. Involved is the actor Tony Robinson, and he joins me now. Hello, Tony.
Hiya.
So this game is called Floodlands, and it's where you build a city, and is that after the disaster of
After
climate
the terrible
change?
disasters happened, and all that's left are a few hundred people on this little island, and the question is, how do you build a good society after that? So it's really asking particularly young people to be creative, to think, also to be a bit kind of optimistic. I mean, one of the problems I think about debating something like global warming is that everybody thinks, oh, it's so ghastly, everything's going to be wiped out, there'll be nothing left at all. And this is saying we are still human beings, we still have skills, we have responsibilities to each other. Let's try and work out the best way to proceed from here.
So a great way of getting a younger audience. How did you get involved? Because I know you wear a lot of hats in your career, but I didn't know game developer was one of them.
It isn't really, but what has always fascinated me is the fact that we are living in this really pretty safe time, in this safe space in temperate Britain. But actually, most of history has been much rockier than that. And I think it's very easy for us to get complacent and think, oh, well, nothing will ever happen to us. But, you know, if you've been in Westbourne Grove during the floods and suddenly the Westbourne comes alive again and everyone has been flooded out and really very, very scared, suddenly you think, you know, even in lovely old London, there are serious dangers ahead.
Well, talking of London, the game is about building a city up. As a Londoner, when you look at our city, what would you do if we were starting again so that we were more climate change aware?
I think the answer to that is education, more than anything else. Greta Thunberg said, if you don't know what to do about global warming, then read up, study, think more, and then you'll start to be able to understand what kind of contribution that you can make. And that's why we're working on Floodlands. We just want to get it into kids' minds and into the schools that the best, most positive thing that you can do is try and work out what the issues are and then address them.
We're running out of time, but do you find young people are being receptive to that message?
Yes, the only danger is that young people tend to know more about global warming, so it's them that tends to think, oh my God, it's far too late, nothing can be done. I think we've got to insert a kind of positivity inside them to say, yes, these problems are massive, but together we can at least work to reduce the excesses of global warming.
Yeah, be optimistic. Tony, thank you very much. Just before the weather, remember all the Paddington Bears left in tribute for Queen Elizabeth? Well, they have been sightseeing, and they must have VIP passes because nowhere has been off limits. Clarence House, the Buckingham Palace, staterooms, you name it, they've been cleaned up and will be donated to Barnardo's by the Queen Consort next week. OK, on to the weekend weather then. Chris Page has the forecast for us.
Feels like home, whatever the weather. Valent Boilers and Heat Pumps sponsors ITV London Weekend Weather.
Hello there. Very good evening to you. Today across the capital we have seen some spells of sunshine after the deluge of rainfall over the last few days. A little respite at least, but for the weekend a story well of two halves. Still Saturday seeing some spells of sunshine, although feeling rather chilly saying that, and by Sunday we see that return to something wetter with heavy blustery showers, and that's because we've got a little ridge of high pressure as we go through Saturday. That gives us a fairly fine day to come, but very quickly that's superseded by this next band of rain charging its way in from the west, and then behind it will feed in further blustery and at times heavy showers. Tonight, though, it's the calm before the storm, as it were. Clear spells out there at the moment. We're starting to see that cloud tending to melt away, actually. But where we've got the clear skies and the light winds, temperatures will fall away. A very cold and chilly night to come, actually. Even in the home counties, temperatures could be into low single figures. And that means we start Saturday morning with some spells of sunshine, although on a cold note. There will be some cloud just tending to build from the northeast as we go through the day on Saturday. Possibly the odd splash of light rain. But the further west you are, likes of Heathrow towards Guildford, here I think we'll see some sunshine and temperatures in the range of 10 to 11 degrees Celsius, although quite chilly where we still have that cloud. As we leave Saturday and go into Sunday, here comes that next band of rain charging its way across the country. In fact, it could pep up for a time during the morning on Sunday, and that could give us some rather heavy bursts of rain. But you notice it whips through at quite a pace before these heavy showers arrive as we go through Sunday and into the afternoon. That unsettled spell continues into next week. Yes, it will be quite chilly, particularly in the breeze, and also quite chilly overnight. Take care.
Valent sponsors ITV London weekend weather.
Now, after a meteoric rise, Hackney singer-songwriter Amaria BB is finally being recognised on the national stage after being nominated for a MOBO award. She's been a contestant on The Voice Kids and even played football for Arsenal. But after struggling to choose a career path, she now says that music is where she feels most at home. Rags Martel has been to meet her.
Who made this? JB made this.
Her star's been rising for years, but now Amaria BB has MOBO nominations next to her name.
Nomination for a MOBO?
Yes.
How does that feel?
Crazy. Do you know what's funny? I didn't even know I got nominated till I turned up to the place. So when I got there, everyone was like, oh my gosh, congratulations. I was like, what? They're like, you got something for a MOBO award? I said, who? Me? And they're like, yeah. I was like, wow, like, it's crazy. Like, my talent's like finally being recognised.
I was born by the river.
She started young, appearing on the kids' version of The Voice in 2017.
I used to be on like CBBCs and I'd done The Voice. And then I stopped like television for a while, and then like I literally started to sing like covers on social media, and I blew up from it. And then, yeah, I'm here now.
Nice, rich life, we're not like, but
You've got a brand new song out,
yes.
Just released.
Yes, Live
Tell me
Some
about
Life. That song is literally just about living life, just being as happy and carefree. Literally, that's literally me. I'm just happy, carefree, just live life, isn't it?
Is that some kind of philosophy you have? Is that important to you?
It's literally my motto. Like, I don't live for anybody apart from myself. You get me? And we're not here forever, so it's important that you do everything while you can.
Welcome to the jungle.
Please.
Amaria BB has now added acting to her talents, appearing in the Amazon Prime series Jungle, but she could have also played for Arsenal.
I used to be a footballer. I used to play for Arsenal girls, and then I used to play for Leyton Orient, but it clashed with music because I had Brit School on Saturday and I had football on Saturday. So my mum basically just said, you have to choose. And I chose singing.
What would you call yourself, an East Londoner?
Yeah, man, Hackney.
How is growing up in East London, how did that form you?
East London is like, it's home. It's more like warm and welcoming. And where I'm from as well is like, everybody's a neighbour. Everyone's together, everyone's close, everyone knows each other.
And how excited are you about the future?
Too excited, but I can't look past it. I can't. I just have to be in the present right now, and then when the future comes, it's like, raw.
Superb. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Rags Martel reporting. Finally tonight, we leave you with a heartwarming reunion, all made possible by a London cabbie. 78 years ago, just 2 weeks after D-Day, young soldier Reg Pye shared his jam sandwiches with a hungry-looking 14-year-old girl in Normandy. The next morning, he woke up to find that she'd left him a tin of milk and a picture of herself that she had signed on the back. He kept it ever since in his wallet, and after hearing his story, Paul Cook from the London taxi charity for military veterans made it his mission to find that French girl and reunite the pair, and he did it. Last week, 99-year-old Reg travelled to France to meet Huguette, who is now 92, and they reminisced over a bottle of champagne. And that is a perfect way to end our programme. Lucrezia is up next with the ITV Evening News, but from me and the rest of the London team, have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.